Hello traders, and welcome to part 4 of reading sentiment. So in today's video, I'm going to be looking at the 3 stages of price action. I know I've made a video called three-stage theory, which looks at the 3 stages of sentiment and how sentiment changes. But today we're going to be looking at the 3 stages of price action within a trend. So what do I mean by that, and why am I making this video before we start? What I mean by that is there's the breakout, or also known as the beginning of an uptrend. And then there's the middle portion of an uptrend when the uptrend is building and there's high buy volume. And then there's high buy volume during the middle of a trend and buy positions are decreasing. And then there's the reversal / ending of a trend. And what you basically want to do is categorize what part of the trend that you're in and then accordingly look for the sentiment within that, the sentiment that fits that portion of the trend. And why I'm making this video is I think it's super important to not just have rules of thumb. My past few videos have been videos that look at sentiment, more with broad sentiment, but here I just want to get very specific, and instead of having rules of thumb, having fast rules that will work. So that's what we're going to do today. We are going to categorize the market with these 3 stages: breakout, middle / continuation, and reversal / ending of a trend. And we're going to see what volume and buy and long positions will look like. Okay, so without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's talk about the breakout stage. So what do you want to see in a breakout stage with bull positions in an uptrend? So when you see the beginning of a trend, it could be a downtrend or it could be an uptrend that forms after a consolidation period, like we can see right here. We have some serious consolidation around May for Ethereum. And then we had price breaking out of this consolidation. What you need to see is a large accumulation of buyer positions, not buy volume, but buyer positions right here. You do want to see buy volume as well, but we're talking about positions here. So we can see that right here. We can see that near the top, we really didn't have many buyers. It was actually going down. And then the minute that price breaks out, we have a quick jump in many buyer positions. That's healthy. I know that might not sound right because, wait, in your previous video, you said that a quick increase in bull positions would mean a downtrend, right? Well, not necessarily. If we're talking about the beginning of a trend, you need that fuel for the uptrend. And that fuel comes from a jump in positions. Yeah, so this is what you want to see with the beginning of an uptrend. With the beginning of a downtrend, you would probably want to look at short positions, and you'd want to see a large increase in short positions because that would fuel price downward. All right, now let's look at that same exact point, but talk about volume. So what I see here is really nothing special with volume with the consolidation period, except maybe an interesting sell spike here and a kind of interesting buy spike here, but not really that important. What is important is when price breaks out of this rectangle. And when we have that large accumulation of buyer positions, we also need to see, and probably will see, a large increase in buy volume. And if you look here, we do have a spike in buy volume that's higher than all of these points before, higher than higher than any single point during the consolidation period, which shows that the nature of the market has changed. And when we see that large jump in buyer volume, we do not see a large jump in seller volume. This looks to be about twice as big as seller volume. So what this is telling me is that putting it all together, many buyer positions are accumulating. That's fantastic because we're emerging out of a consolidation period. And also we see a large increase in buy volume, which is fuel for the trend. And it looks like we have a uptrend that just began. And then not much sell volume when we break out either. And then on top of all that, before we leave breakouts, technical analysis looks fantastic here with almost a vertical jump in price. So that confirms the breakout. So that's what you want to look for in a breakout, those 3 things. For the breakout to an upside, you need to see that large increase in accumulation in buyer positions, a larger increase in buyer volume than sell volume, of course, and then you want to see a spike in price. Okay, so let's use the same graph and same situation, but now let's talk about the middle of a trend. And what I categorize as the middle of a trend, just to make that clear, is right after we have the we have the beginning stage right here, and then we have what I like to call the fueling stage, where we have a lot of volume and a lot of positions coming into the market, and that's like this part right here. And that's like this part right here. And then we get into the middle of a trend, around here-ish, where the trend is established, people know about it, and are acting accordingly. And as I've said in my previous videos, I think I said this in my second or my first video with stage theory, this is when three-stage theory comes in. That we need to see a drop-off in bull positions, and we do. We can see here that after we get that beautiful spike in buyers after a breakout, it begins to decrease as price moves upward. That's healthy. That means that the long positions are taking profit, and institutions are getting into the market, and retail traders are getting out of the market. So this is beautiful. This is exactly what you'd want to see for the middle portion of an uptrend in bull positions. Okay. So if you had put on your graph and seen this, then this looks great. You'd probably want to hold this. Okay. And besides this, you also want to see in the middle of a trend, this is a little bit more complicated. But here's what I did. If you deselect buy volume, you will just see sell volume. I like to do that, to just isolate one. And here you can see I just isolated buy volume. What you want to see with sell volume during an uptrend is you need to see high sell volume at market bottoms. You do not want to see high sell volume at a market top. And if you do see high sell volume at a market top, you need to see higher buy volume at that market top than sell volume. Now let's get into exactly what I'm talking about here. We can see the price goes up and then goes down very, very slightly to a minor market bottom. But we have a large spike in sell volume, but not really too much reaction in the market downward. This shows that what basically this shows us is that even with a lot of sell volume into this market, the market's not budging, the market's not moving downward, which shows strength in limit orders. When you see high sell volume, that doesn't necessarily mean that price goes downward. What that could mean is we have a bid wall. And if you guys know the order book, then you know what I'm talking about right now. And if you don't, I'd recommend that you watch my videos on the order book. But for those who do know what the order book is and understand what I'm talking about here, when we see this spike in sell volume and then price doesn't move much, that shows a very strong order book with many bids and many buy limit orders that are willing to get into the market at not the best price, which shows a bullish nature, if that makes sense. So those are the things that you want to see. You want to see high sell volume at market bottoms, and when you see that high sell volume, you do not want the market to move much, okay? Because that shows a strong order book. Same exact situation here. We have very high sell volume in this uptrend, but the market doesn't really do much. I would say it drops only a few dollars, even with this spike. So again, if you had not seen all this, you would know that just by looking at this, that the uptrend is likely to continue. Do not panic because there's a spike in volume, and just hold. You're in the middle of an uptrend. And then here's where stuff gets interesting. So we do have a spike in sell volume, and the price does move down, as you can see here. So when you say, whoa, why wouldn't I sell into this retracement? You could, but look at this. There's higher buy volume at that same exact point than there is sell volume. Even though this is a market top and high sell volume in a market top is very bad, the buyers were still stronger at this market top, which makes me think that the bulls are still in control of this market. And then the third thing that we see is this fall off in price right here, and we have gigantic sell volume, as you can see right here. But we also have a reaction of bull volume right here off this retracement. So again, what this is telling me is even though the sell volume is larger than the bull volume, which is not fantastic, this is still a market bottom. This is not a market top like this. And this is telling me that price did react, but we reached a market bottom as price rebounded immediately and began to go upward a little bit more. And if I had seen this, I wouldn't really do anything. If I had a bull position, also as a long position, I would just stay in the market because this is really no indication of getting out. So that would be looking at sell volume and what you should be looking for in the middle of a trend. Okay, let's move on. So what do you want to see in an uptrend with buy volume? So It's a little more complicated with buy volume, just slightly with what you want to see. There are three things that we can categorize with buy volume in an uptrend. There's high buy volume at a market bottom. That's very healthy. There's high buy volume at a market at the middle of a market where we have a large increase in price. So that would be called continuation volume. And then we also have the not so great volume, but sometimes necessary volume, which is high buy volume at a market top. And that's what we can see in this graph, all the things that I just mentioned. So right here with this first thing that I put in a rectangle, we can see the price is consolidating here. And then we get this beautiful, very high volume spike, very high buy volume spike, where price shoots upward and is supported by buy volume. This looks great as continuation volume or breakout volume. You could call it either one because this is a breakout, but it's also a continuation of price moving upward. So this is not a market top. Do not make that mistake. And it's not because of this consolidation period before. And also it's not because of the reaction of the market. We see an even better continuation buy volume spike right here, where we have price moving upward, moving upward, moving upward, and then we get that large buy volume entering the market, which propels the market upward. And then we have this point right here that becomes a reversal, and that is caused by this very high volume spike. So in the middle of this uptrend, we get this gigantic buy volume spike that's offset, that's higher than this sell volume spike. And because of this, this is still bullish in the market, but this does lead to a retracement. And speaking of that retracement, we get very high buy volume at the end of that retracement right here, which coincides with this. So yeah, so that's basically what you want to see with buy volume in the middle of a trend. You need to see very high buy volume in the bottom. So like right here, this is very high buy volume at a market bottom. And you also want to see very high buy volume during the breakout. This is a breakout right here. And we also have a breakout right here, as you can see. That one I already talked about. Breakout volume here and here, and also continuation volume. This is continuation volume, and this kind of is continuation volume as well. So you want to see high breakout volume, high continuation volume, high volume at a market bottom, but you do not want to see high volume at a market top, because when you do, retracement or even reversal. So yeah, that is what you want to be looking for at the middle of a trend. Going back from a decrease in bull positions to sell volume at a market bottom, buy volume at a market bottom, and yeah, so that's what you'd want to be on the lookout for. Now let's talk about what a lot of traders are looking for, which is reversal trading, and what defines a reversal. Okay, so reversals are hard to spot. They're not, I would say a breakout is easier to spot than a reversal, and I would say continuation or middle of a trend is much easier to spot than a reversal. I'm going to show you guys exactly why. Okay, so we have price. This is more near the end of the trend for Ethereum, where we have the June 12th or June 13th was a market top made in Ethereum at around the 300. I think it was like 370. Okay, so here's what happened. We have that healthy decrease in bulls as price is moving upward. Great. But here are a few places where I want to talk about during the reversal of this trend. This was not a reversal right here. And you might be thinking, wait, why? Well, this is not a reversal because look how many bulls ditch their positions. With all these bulls ditching their positions as price moves downward, this shows that retail traders have caught on to the fact that price is going to keep moving downward. And what that means is the minute that the retail traders begin trading in the right manner, price reverses. So that's exactly what happened. We have a market crash, and then all the bulls jump out, which creates a vacancy, and then institutions begin buying up. And we have price move upward as the retail bull positions don't really move that much, but they do fluctuate. But that's what happens with this first point here and why it's not a reversal. Okay, second point and why it is not a reversal. So we can see that we have this quick increase in bull positions, as you can see right here. And this one's a little tricky because this does have all the earmarks of a reversal. But here's one thing that would show you exactly why it is not. If we look at sell volume and buy volume, we do not have a large increase in sell volume. Look right here. We do not have a volume spike at all Volume here is much, much higher. So this does not look like a market top to me. Yeah, and then look at, then look at also buy volume here. This is the point I'm talking about, where we have this rapid increase in bull positions, but we do not see high volume. We just see high volume like here-ish, but not at the top. And you need to see high volume at a market top or a market bottom for it to be a reversal point. But we don't see that. So that's exactly why I put an X here and said this is not a reversal. But what is a reversal was this. We do have that increase in bull positions right here. We go from about, that looks to be about 140K to about 150K. So about, I'd say 10, 12,000 more Ethereum had been bought at this point. And price does move upward. And then price moves a little bit more upward. And then we get a full-on reversal that takes out all these positions. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, wait, okay, so I understand why this isn't, I understand why this isn't, but why is this one? Well, let's look at the volume. So when we look at the volume, we can already see that we have, with sell volume, we have very high sell volume coming right here. That's much higher than all of this, right here, as price is moving upward, and right here. And if we look at buy volume at that point, we can also see that we begin to have a decrease in buy volume, a decrease in continuation buy volume, that is, and buy volume at market bottoms during this uptrend. And here's what I mean by that. We have very healthy buy volume here as the price is moving upward. And we have a very healthy spike in buy volume here with a continuation volume. We have a very healthy spike right here, which is buy volume at a market bottom. Fantastic. That's what you want to see. And if you had bought here because you'd recognize this, you would have caught all that. Great. What's not so pretty is when we get to here. As price is moving upward, volume begins to fall. And we get periods like this, and like this, and like this, where we don't really have much volume. Not as much volume and activity as we had before. So this should be putting off warning bells in your head, where when you see buy volume is beginning to decrease in a trend. That shows you that fuel for the uptrend is beginning to run out. So that's a good indicator. Now let's talk about the point, not just this point, because I explained that, but let's talk about this point here and why we had a reversal. So we can see that we're beginning to have very high volume in the market. But here's what happens. Price makes one last push upward that happens right here. And then what we see is gigantic sell volume right here. Many sellers in this market, many people are dumping their Ethereum or shorting at this market top. And what we also see in buy volume is a large spike in buy volume, but the sell volume is clearly higher than the buy volume, as you can see right here. And just to evidence that, you can see that this is about 20K. Look right there, 20K. And then this one was about, I think, like 17K. If we look at buy volume, we had this one right here was about 15K only. This one was about 14K. So just by looking at that, you can see that there's a lot of sell volume coming in this market. And let me just talk about these two spikes. This spike occurs when we get this market top, and then the market moves downward. This spike is continuation sell volume. Because the market has just moved into a trending downward stage. And as the market crashes right there, that crash is supported by this continuation sell volume. Whereas this first volume spike is the market top. Right here, we have this buy volume's coming for that last leg of the uptrend, and then this volume comes at the market top. And then we see virtually really no buy volume coming at around the market crash. We see a lot of sell volume coming at this market crash. And that's telling me that the combination of a fall in buy volume, a spike in buy volume at a market top, which is not healthy for an uptrend, and then also a higher spike in sell volume at a market top, and then also we can see a spike in bull positions right before. That is just screaming reversal that this market has reached a maxima. So that's going to be it for this video. We have gone over the 3 stages of an uptrend. We've gone over the beginning, or also known as the breakout, when we've gone over the breakout from a sideways market. We've gone over the middle of a trend, and when you can see continuation volume and breakout volume with buy volume here, and where you want to see the buy volume and where you want to see the sell volume in the market. And we also talked about how positions factor into that as well, with a decrease in positions. And then we went over the reversal, or what the end of an uptrend should look like. And we categorized that by looking at bull position, sell volume, and buy volume. So yeah, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys have any questions about anything, then feel free to leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.